All right, here we go on the third part on how to create a soft slab textured box. I'm working on the lid today, and then also going to work on the feet. So I'm checking the inside of my interior wall, looking at the areas that I've actually attached a coil previously to reinforce the joints on each of the actual walls. And then I'm going to check to make sure that the lid is fitting properly with the right shape. I'm going to use a little line on one side of the lid and the box to help key up exactly where my lid is going to go each time I place it back onto the actual box. So there's a little line that's going to help me keep everything lined up as I'm working today, and then also working on the other parts throughout this demo. I'm measuring the opening, and I want to make a square that's going to rest inside the lid and then drop down inside the actual container to keep the lid from sliding around. The measurement is whatever size and whatever you're working with. For this demo, I think it was around 2.5 to maybe 2 3/4 of an inch on for each side of the square. And so I'm using my ruler that actually has a 90-degree corner on it to start my square, and then I'm going to rotate and use the other two measurements and connect them and make a nice perfect square. So that square will end up being about 2.5, almost 2 3/4 in size in every direction. Take a metal ruler and then take your knife, and you're going to cut the outside edge away using the ruler over the actual slab that you're trying to keep, so you don't accidentally cut into your slab. Remember, I'm always going to be doing everything on my left side because I'm left-handed, and I'm just checking to make sure that the lid will fit with the little locking system as well. Now, if I don't really want all that extra clay attached to the lid, I can take out the middle part of this slab as well. So I'm just making a little border. This can be up to you, whatever thickness you want. Mine's probably around 1/4 of an inch, and then I'm just going to remove that square out of the middle. Use my knife very carefully, vertically, try to make sure I don't go through the corner and make a weak spot or accidentally cut all the way through. So take your time, slowly remove the square out of the middle once you've cut it all the way out. Now you have a nice little framed piece of clay that you're going to be able to attach to the underneath part of your lid, and so it should lock in your lid when you put it back on top of the box. Kind of give it a test run, but it won't probably drop in because there's going to be a couple little corners that you're going to have to remove on each of those 4 little corners that are going to drop in a little bit better once you remove the point of them. So recentering it back on the lid, going to trace it out so I know exactly where to score, and please make sure you score with a needle tool and do a crisscross pattern over the entire thing. Lots of little lines. It takes a little bit of time, but you'll be able to get a much stronger connection between the two pieces of clay than using the wire brush. The wire brush is a little too weak and it won't dig into the clay properly. So always score some leather hard clay together like this with your needle tool. Make sure you agitate the surface quite a bit. And then once you feel like you've gotten all the way out to the edges, all the way to the corners, then you're ready to apply slip. Dab it on, create a good layer. And then if you need to maybe rescore a couple of the sections that you might have not hit very well, go ahead and put a little extra slip and everything there too. Then press it down carefully. Don't crush your slab. And just kind of work your way around the surface, and you'll actually hear the slip kind of squish out around the connection. Then just kind of test things out, make sure they're in the right spot. You should have about the same border edge all the way around with your lid, and if it doesn't drop in right away, you might need to kind of experiment a little bit with what you need to do. Right now I'm just checking to make sure it's close, and now I'm going to take the little corners and remove them with my knife so that it'll slide down into the container without hitting those edges. There should be just a little bit of play in between, very little amount. So you want to make sure it just has a little bit of a shift to it, because it'll keep the lid from getting stuck inside the actual container when we do the firing. Let it rest for a little bit, and then you can clean up your slip after it's thickened up on the inside of your lid. Might have to do a little bit of cleanup on the lid. Maybe you have an overhang that you don't like. You might need to shave off a little bit of the clay to help it look like it's more consistent with the rest of the wall, and change the angle if you want to. For me, I'm going to leave it the way it is because I have a little bit of texture on the edge of my slab, so it kind of relates to the wall. And now I'm going to make the base, the actual feet for the base. I'm going to take another textured section of my slab that I kept, and I'm going to make about a 2-inch square, and I'm going to cut this into triangles that are going to sit in the corner of the base. Same technique as before with the ruler, and then I'm going to divide it in half diagonally both ways. And then that will create, once I cut them all out, that'll create 4 triangles that I'll be able to use for my feet on the base of my slab box. Remember to always use the ruler over the section you're trying to keep, so you don't accidentally cut through the part that you want. This is the one trickier one where you actually have to go right through the middle to make your diagonal cuts. Place them on the bottom. Now this is going to be something that you want to do and create kind of your own design if you want. You can kind of do something similar to what I've just done, but this is a way for you to elevate the box off the table a little bit and give yourself a nice little presented base, and notice that it's actually been some time has actually been spent on the bottom of your container. So I'm trying to make sure each of these triangles are measured out just the right amount on the edge and from each other, so they're spaced out evenly, and then I'm going to trace them out with the needle tool, then move them back in. I want to make sure they stay next to the corner that they belong to, and then I'm going to do the crisscross pattern with the scoring of the needle tool. Make sure I go a couple different directions and go all the way out to the edges, then lay on some slip and press it down. Work your way back and forth around the actual foot, so you're making sure that you get all the edges connected properly to the actual base of your box. I like to go one at a time. Just guarantees that I know that that one has been attached properly. I don't skip around and try to do all 4 at the same time. After I've scored, I want to do one at a time, so I tend to just score one section at a time as well. You could get away with just going ahead and scoring all the triangles first on the base, and then doing all the actual slabs after that, and then attaching each individual one, but it helps me kind of keep things aligned and keep things organized while I'm working, and I know which ones have been done properly and which ones still need to be attached. And once I have all the 4 feet actually attached to the bottom, I'm not going to try to clean it up right away. So you can notice and you can see there's a lot of slip buildup around the edges of each of these attached pieces. And I'm going to leave that and let it firm up a little bit more, like probably more close to leather hard. And I'm going to then come back and clean up what I need to clean up in a little while. Probably wait. This one will probably stay in the bag overnight and then come back to it tomorrow and clean up the connections everywhere, inside the lid and around the feet. And then I might do some other manipulation and shaving of the actual feet to kind of change their shape and how they transition into the base and on the bottom of the actual slab box. Once they're on there, you can definitely rest it right side up. You don't have to leave it upside down. You can turn it back onto its feet and then let it sit in the bag for the day. All right, good luck.